Howdy, 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 my name's Anachi Sasuke, and welcome back to Let's Read the SCP Foundation Wiki. In the last episode, we read about the rat hole cover, the fanfic plague, a pair of scissors, the baby, and the insult box. I remember the insult box was messed up, and the fanfic plague was a different kind of messed up. The rat hole cover was interesting, the pair of scissors seems to have cut reality, and I don't really remember nothing about the baby, and I'm not going to go back to check, because it might have been terrifying. So in this episode, we're going to be reading about the Iapetus anomaly. I don't think I said that right. Iapetus, the hungry train, the devil's deal, a mirrored booth, and the Hindenburg photograph. Before that, though, let's see how to pronounce this word. If I even, let's see. In Greek mythology, Iapetus. Okay. Or occasionally Japetus. Japa. Okay, it's a moon of Saturn, but also one of the Titans. Let's see what the SCP Foundation thinks it is. Shall we? Well, it's Keter and it looks like the Death Star. Or a walnut. Space Walnut Death Star. So, let me just drink some water. And let us bask in the fact that this episode starts with a Keter entry. Direct observation of SCP-736 is to be coordinated through Foundation intelligent assets in the European Space Agency, National Aeronautics and Space Administration, China National Space Administration, and Russian Federal Space Agency. The next mission for close observation of 736 is scheduled for 2022 and is designed to be a clandestine science objective for the European Space Agency's Jupiter Icy Moon Explorer project. Ground-based telescope observation of Iapetus and the Saturnian system is to be maintained at all times. All major astrophysics research centers and universities are to be monitored by the Foundation Office of Celestial Anomalies for awareness of SCP-736. During 736 events, internet traffic is to be monitored for reports of irregularities in Iapetus orbit. In cases where non-Foundation researchers have identified 736, amnestics and information suppression protocols are authorized to prevent widespread knowledge in the scientific community. Description: SCP-736 is an anomaly affecting the Saturnian moon Iapetus. For brief periods generally lasting several days, Iapetus' orbit is spontaneously altered by measures of eccentricity, orbital period, or both. The orbit of Iapetus returns to its documented state after these spontaneous changes. Models of temporary orbits can almost entirely consist of it undergoing orbital decay, and in most scenarios is projected to collide with Saturn and, depending on the projection, other Saturnian moons, at some point within the next 150 to 300 years. These projected orbits are all in direct violation of mathematical models and both classical and relativistic physical principles, which do not predict a decay in the orbit of Iapetus due to the tidal effects or gravitational radiation. Additionally, changes in its eccentricity and orbital period do not proceed in constant manner. Instead, these changes happen at different rates and at relatively large intervals. Since analysis of 736 began in 2007, researchers have recorded 159 variations in the rate of its orbital decay. Statistical analysis of trends in the changes to 736 and the various results of computer modeling of its orbit have revealed that the changes in its orbital decay do not occur randomly. Instead, variances have occurred in groups centered around what appears to be a central set of numerical values and a series of calibrations to achieve them. To date, 8 discrete orbs have been observed for orbits. SCP-736 is believed to be directed by an intelligent entity. On September 10, 2007, during the Cassini-Huygens flyby of Iapetus, the spacecraft was contacted by a then unknown source of radio transmissions. Telemetry analysis revealed the source to be located on the surface of Iapetus. Foundation assets within NASA immediately seized information transmitted from the source and commenced an information suppression campaign. Approximately 8.2 terabytes of data were transmitted from the surface of Iapetus in a time period of 12 seconds. Analysis of the data was inconclusive as most of it seemed to be random configurations of number values represented by a series of repetitive tones. However, the transmission has been served as evidence of a sapient, technologically advanced presence on Iapetus. All communication attempts by Foundation staff have thus far been unreciprocated. And here's a research log, a list of the orbital decay stimulations. Collides with Saturn, flyby of Dione, Flyby Dione and Tethys. Collides with Rhea prior to impact with Saturn. Collides with Titan prior to impact with Saturn. Collides with Titan, resulting in major changes to its orbit. Collides with Titan, resulting in major changes to its orbit. Collides with Titan, major changes to orbit. Reclassified as Keter, effective February 3rd, 2012. So, trajectory of Titan's orbit predicts a close encounter with Earth in 2258, passing within 800,000 kilometers. Note, the SCP-736 event preceding this model was accompanied by a transmission directed at a Foundation-owned listening post in Costa Rica from the vicinity of Ipetus. The transmission consisted of what an analyst determined to be a representation of the numeral 7.048 billion repeated 17 times, followed by the numeral 0 repeated 17 times. So, evidently, in 150 years and some change, Ipetus is going to slam into Titan, which is going to make it eventually come near Earth. And when they did this test, the transmissions came from Ipetus with these numbers. So there's no telling what that means. In any case, moving on. Next up is the Hungry Train, which is safe. SCP-737 is to be kept in a locked copper safe welded to the wall and storage unit blank at site blank. While in its safe, 737 is to be placed on its side in order to prevent a containment breach. In the event of a containment breach, staff are to attempt to incapacitate 737 without touching or destroying its front carriage. It is to be provided with 3 centimeters cubed of wood every day via a robotic arm. Any additional carriages produced by 737 are to be removed from the main body and deposited back in the safe to restrict its movements. The primary aspect of 737 is the front carriage of a wooden toy train approximately 5 centimeters tall, 4 centimeters thick, and without carriages, 6 centimeters long. It's growing. X-ray analysis has revealed that the wooden portion of 737 is an outer shell protecting a small brain and biological tissue that make up its actual body. 737 is able to independently engage in locomotion, I like that song, and does so constantly when given the opportunity. When 737 reaches an obstacle, it will, through a process as of yet unknown, absorb the material directly in front of it and usually incorporate it into itself in the form of a wooden train carriage. This process typically takes 5 to 20 seconds, depending on the density of the material, and will leave a tunnel in the object for 737 to continue moving through. 737 has demonstrated the ability to absorb most materials, including wood, metal, plastic, data expunged. 737 seems unable to use some substances to increase its mass, and will instead convert it into a gas, which is then released from its chimney. It appears unwilling to absorb copper and its own removed segments. 737 is predatory and will favor living targets over inanimate objects. 737 is likely vulnerable to damage, as the wood that comprises outer shell shows no anomalous properties. Due to this, great care must be taken when handling 737, as the chances of it being a natural organism are extremely low. Any clues as to its origin are to be reported immediately. So, history. SCP-737 was first discovered by the Foundation after a series of child disappearances in blank came to their attention when the police received testimony of a toy train fleeing from the crime scenes. Mobile Task Force Mu 9 Toy Breakers. The fact that there's even a task force that's called Toy Breakers raises some questions, but were sent in to investigate the matter, and despite losing blank of their group, were able to successfully retrieve it. Addendum 1. The size has recently increased dramatically. If it continues to grow at this rate, we may have to reconsider the containment procedures, Dr. Honey. Addendum 2. At approximately blank or blank 2000 something, a containment breach of SCP blank caused 737's regular feeding time to be missed. 20 minutes after the containment breach, 737 began slowly absorbing the copper in its safe at a rate of 1 centimeter per hour, releasing a toxic and opaque gas from its chimney. It was quickly brought under control by the timely actions of Research Assistant Blank, who described the gas as foul. It now appears that although 737 is unwilling to absorb copper, it does have the capacity to do so. That's weird. Why have they not just cracked it open? Like, oh, we can't hurt it because it's not natural and we need to know where it came from. But it eats people and it's a toy wooden train that's made of wood with a brain inside that they could just take a chisel to and be done with it. There are so many SCPs. It's like, okay, secure, protect, contain. Or secure, contain, protect. But many of these things can easily be disposed of, and there's no reason for there to be 4,000 of them just around. So, let's check out the Devil's Deal. Probably not like one of those Binding of Isaac devil deals, especially because it's Keter again. So that's two out of 3 of the entries we've done so far have been Keter. And I think, you know what? Instead of me doing the Serious Keter Voice for this one, I'm going to just read it like I normally do, with probably a little bit more incredulousness, or incredibility, whichever version of that word I want. So, SCP-738 is to be kept in 3 linked sealed chambers with armed guards, and a remote detonation system at all times, as well as constant full audio/visual surveillance. Due to the variety and strength of observed interactions with it, and the unknown limits of it, the following procedures are to be strictly followed. There's no colon there. When 738 is not in use, its components must be kept 1 to each chamber. Mechanical means built into the chamber area, or containment area, are to be used to assemble and disassemble 738. No disassemble Johnny 5 though. Should mechanical assembly means fail, then testing is to be cancelled until an engineer fitted with an explosive collar can be sent in to repair the systems. Said engineers to be detonated upon any attempt to interact with any component of 738. Should mechanical disassembly fail, preset shaped charges shall be used to disassemble 738. The system should then be repaired and reset by a single engineer fitted with an explosive collar. All disposable dudes used to test the device must be mildly intellectually disabled or of comparably impaired cognitive function and must be fitted with an explosive collar. This is in order to prevent them from learning too much about it and possibly using it in a way that is detrimental to the Foundation. Disposable dudes with IQs over 60 and all other personnel are not allowed into the room containing it. Disposable dudes are allowed into the room containing it for experimentation only in order to be provided with continual instruction by research personnel. I'm expecting it to be like a pack of papers, but let's find out. 738 consists of 3 components: a matched set of mahogany furniture, including 1 desk currently labeled SCP-738-1, 1 straight-back chair currently labeled 2, and 1 ornate throne-styled office chair labeled 3, all with brass embellishments and royal purple velvet padding. Purple? Sure, why not? The effect begins when the sentient entity sits in 2 in front of 1, with 3 resting behind 2. Cameras show 3 moving during the effect, frequently leaning back and into a relaxed state, as well as moving closer to or further away from 2. Occasionally, 3 is moved in front of 2. Furthermore, cameras show papers and folders containing papers leaving 1's drawers. The papers are made of parchment. A quill pen and a bottle of ink emerge from the long drawer. The pen will write on the parchment. Audio recorders record a distorted voice speaking. His voice will make offers and promises, attempting to tempt the occupant of 2. Meaning has been extracted from the spoken voice. If in this time, the entity sitting in 2 makes a request, then the tempting and offers will cease. There will be a pause, and a price will be stated. This can be bargained with, however the voice will insist on other prices of equal value. Occasionally, when a request is made, the voice will respond by telling the requester that they do not want the object enough, or that they are obviously requesting the object for someone else to get around paying full price, in which case the request is not fulfilled. This occurs most frequently for requests that can affect other people or can transfer possession. Accepting the deal causes the agreed upon wish or command to be fulfilled to the letter, but not past the letter. Furthermore, it will cause the occurrences stated in the price to be paid. The entity has actively stated that the occurrences in the price are intended to cause an amount of emotional and or physical pain equal to the amount that the requester desires what they request. How parity is calculated is at present unknown. The price has also been stated to be independent of any pain caused by fulfilling the request. See the test log for examples of prices paid and requests made. That rhymes. Is it in here? Yes, it is. As a final note, personnel in the chair have reported seeing an entity sitting in 3. However, all attempts to observe the entity when not seated in 2 have failed, and further descriptions of the entity are inconsistent between sessions, even with multiple sessions with the same person. That doesn't seem safe. But what do they care? They're disposable. When asked about this, the entity claims to be the same entity each time. Some frequent descriptions of the entity include seductive and charming. Sessions with the same person that are close in time report similar or identical entity appearances. Sessions with different people that are close in time report different entities' appearances. Descriptions of the voice do not match the voice recorder on the equipment. History. SCP-738 was recovered from the office of blank blank, a Catholic cardinal, after his death on blankety blank blank. He had received it as a gift from the Pope for extraordinary services with the Vatican archives. The Foundation became aware of it after data expunged. With blank blank dead and his will contested in the aftermath of the event, Foundation personnel acquired the desk. Foundation agents in the Vatican reported recovering some of the documents surrounding it. Test results. Test 1. Researcher sits in 2 and waits. Results. Researcher reports several attempts made to coerce him into a deal, with deals including love of the women he wants, an object that would make him a well-respected researcher, and the granting of O5 status. Startled researcher leaves room. Recordings follow statements provided. Researcher reports disappearance of the entity, followed by return of pen, paper, and folders to drawers. Using cameras, speed of object returned clocked at over 100 m per second. Meters? Miles? Probably meters. Researcher reports seeing a man in a red and gold business suit. Test 2. Personnel disposable blank sat on 2. Analysis performed upon papers and documents. Results. Spectral analysis has confirmed that the parchment is human skin. The feather in the quill pen comes from an unidentified bird. Subject offered freedom is told that the price is the death of his best friend. D laughed and agreed, then vanished. D was recaptured 5 hours later. Documents written in English. Involved in test report seeing a beautiful and seductive woman. Personnel disposable due to non-native English speaker sits in 2. The papers are written in their native tongue or language and as is spoken communication. They're offered the power to never be held in a cell again. Price is stated to be the memories of their mother. They accept offer. After acceptance, data expunged, resulting in the deaths of 12 guards and that guy. Test 4, personnel disposable, somebody dyslexic and seriously mentally disabled, sits in SCP-738-2. Results. The language on the parchment appeared to be crude pictograms representing the deal, though some words in English were represented in the parchment. In general, the English was unrelated to the pictures they were under and frequently insult disposable dude's intelligence and say that the entity is uncertain how much of this they understand. They were offered a Sloppy Joe. Price was stated to be Mopsy, a toy they had been allowed to smuggle into the Foundation. They accepted, and food was materialized upon the desk along with antique silverware, fine china plate, and crystal glass sippy cup with wine-colored grape juice. They showed great distress upon discovering that Mopsy was missing after finishing the meal. They reported seeing a large pink rabbit. After the deal was complete and they left the chair, recorders picked up a sigh. Voice print of sigh does not match their voice. Test 4 follow-up. Issued toy exactly identical to Mopsy. Result, as soon as they named the toy Mopsy, it vanished. They showed great emotional distress. No Mopsy for you any longer. Test 5, destruction testing. Result, data expunged, explosive, fire, gunshot, mechanical wood chipper fail. Direct attack upon the desk with axe leaves a single gash with a depth of 3 mm and results in data expunged, as well as the death of attacking personnel. The gash remains in the desk. Video logs show gash healing at a rate of 1 whatever that is per day. Test 6. Researcher sits in the chair and asks, "What are you?" The entity, taking the appearance of a large snake, states, "I'm sorry. It's against policy to divulge personal details. But may I interest you in data expunged?" Researcher stood from chair, shaking and ending the session. The researcher was then placed in Mental Institution 5, awaiting review due to information revealed by offer. Test 7. Sheldon Katz, Esquire, Senior Counsel with the Foundation Legal Department. Result. At commencement of test, Mr. Katz presented the entity with a notarized apostilled affidavit stating that he was participating in the test on his own behalf and not as agent for the Foundation. Approximately 41 hours after the commencement of the test, Mr. Katz lapsed into unconsciousness due to exhaustion. Mr. Katz described the appearance of the entity as identical to his first-year contracts professor from law school, but he declined to describe the nature of the offer that had been made. He reported that just prior to his blacking out, he had been in the midst of negotiating a precise technical definition of the word shall. Katz stated that the current working draft of the agreement that he and the entity had been drafting was at least 900 pages long at that moment, exclusive of exhibits and schedules, and that he regretted not keeping a copy for his form file. A red letter envelope smelling of sulfur was found on Mr. Katz's person, which contained a handwritten note reading, "Please come back anytime, I haven't had so much fun in years." Mr. Katz has requested reassignment. Remaining tests require level 4 clearance or higher to view until declassification complete. Addendum 3, notes. In recent testing, offers have been made directly to the researchers who were telling the subject what to do. Recommend cessation of all testing. 05 blank. I wonder what the other tests were. We will probably never know, but I'm glad I didn't read all that in the Serious Keter Voice because it was a lot more fun to read it normal. Anyway, should I just not do the Serious Keter Voice anymore? Because lately I've either not been able to maintain it or it's starting to hurt. So maybe I shouldn't do that anymore. I'd say let me know in the comments, but I'm not 100% sure any of you give enough of a damn to say that. So, moving on. A mirrored booth. I was about to say, if it was another Keter, that would have been hilarious. Anyway, it's Euclid. SCP-739 is to be kept in a well-lit room with its door wedged open at all times. That sounds strange. Under no circumstances are any personnel with personality characteristics of grandiosity, psychopathy. Well, that's not how you say that. It's probably psychopathy. Psychopathy, psychopathy, sociopathy, or solipsism to be assigned to 739. If no such personnel are available, the use of mental alterations to produce such personnel is authorized. When testing is not being conducted, 2 disposable dudes must be present in the room and rotated every 3 hours. One is to be positioned within 739 while the second stands immediately in front of the first and is to ensure that the first does not close the door. No testing with 739 is to occur without prior approval from the project director. Any subjects that show signs of hostility after emerging are to be terminated immediately. Description: it's a booth constructed of a lacquered oak, measuring 91 by 91 centimeters at its base, 210 in height, 87 by 91 at its apex. So it's a tree? It says constructed of a lacquered oak. So is it just a tree? Is that what that is? Maybe the letter A is not supposed to be in there. The object is in the shape of a symmetrical trapezoidal prism. The 2 inward-leaning walls inside of the object each have a mirror affixed to them which face one another and emit a set of climbing reflections, giving the illusion of meeting overhead. The back wall and the door of the booth are both featureless and unremarkable. Any visual recordings of the interior will not record the reflections of the mirrors within. All such recordings show the mirrors as a uniform black coloration, indicating a complete absence of recorded light. Faint whispers can be heard emanating from an indeterminate point within the object, however, individual phrases or voices cannot be distinguished. Yeah, it sounds uncomfortable. I would not want to go into a box of mirrors that whispers at me. If a subject, used to say or item, is present within 739 when the door is closed, said door will be impossible to open for a varying period of time during which the booth shakes violently. After the shaking has ceased, the door can be reopened and any objects placed, now it says subjects, will have undergone a one-dimensional lateral inversion. All asymmetrical aspects of the subject become reversed, including internal organs and asymmetrical molecules. This change occurs on the molecular level, with L amino acids becoming D amino acids. I don't really know what the significance of that is, but it sounds like they die. But apparently they don't. Subjects capable of communication will claim that they are unaffected and will maintain the perspective that their surroundings are inverted instead. Exposing the subject to the anomalous effect of 739 a second time will revert their lateral inversion. However, some subjects still report minor discrepancies in their environment afterwards. When questioned, subjects will be unable to identify any specific discrepancies, attributing it to an indistinct feeling. After being affected by 739 several times, subjects will begin to display prominent physical and mental divergence from prior to testing. Physical characteristics that are considered undesirable to the test subject will gradually diminish until absent or replaced by favorable characteristics. Alternate subjects are unaware of these changes and are insistent that no changes have occurred. Typically, features such as facial scarring, prominent acne, disfigured or absent limbs, excessive weight, and or insufficient or over-sufficient height. Affected subjects will also progressively develop divergent memories of their history prior to exposure to 739. These memories will become more prominent with each time the subject utilizes it, eventually resulting in a history that the subject would consider more favorable than their true history. However, universally result in the subject being inducted into the Foundation's disposable dude regimen for testing with 739. Subjects will lose familiarity with individuals who become increasingly absent in these false memories, and will claim familiarity with individuals that they never encountered. In most cases, these individuals are purely fictitious or portrayed in a stereotyped manner. If the door to 739 is closed without any objects or such as present within, the item will initially function as though such was present. After unsealing, an entity of unknown physical appearance will emerge from 739. These entities uniformly appear as a featureless dark blur on any visual recordings they are present on, and are cognitohazardous to observant person. Personnel questioned prior to anesthetization will state the entity is foreign or unknowable, frequently referring to it as something that doesn't exist. All such entities that have emerged from 739 to date have utilized shockwave pulses in order to damage their immediate environment and injure or kill nearby personnel. See Experiment 23. I feel like it's probably not here, but it might be because this looks kind of long. Following the initiation of disposable dude testing, 739 will no longer recognize the presence of inanimate objects placed within when closed, functioning as though its interior was left empty. I just want to say that the cognito-hazardous dark blur entities sound like something that would happen in Night Vale. It legit feels like I just read something that would happen in an episode of Night Vale. I've been listening to a lot of that lately. Anyway. Interview log. Interview, Disposable 53682, researcher blank. Forward. They have been altered multiple times in succession before the interview was conducted. Prior to the initiation of these experiments, Disposable Dude was a Caucasian male, 154 centimeters in height, weighed 65 kilograms, and had lost their left arm below the shoulder from an amputation. Following the conclusion of these tests and during the interview, they were a Caucasian male, 203 centimeters in height, weighed 105 kilograms, and had regenerated their lost arm. Is that extra weight from the arm coming back? Begin log. Please state your full name followed by your designation. John Kate Bald, D53682. Are you sure that's your name? What do you mean, am I sure? It's my name. I've had it since birth. Our records say that you, D53682, are named Jesse Clarence Bell. Before testing began, you told us that was your name. No, my name is John Kate Bell. Or Ball. It's always been John Kate Ball, like I said before. Someone must be messing with your systems. You should get Cam to see if he can fix it. Cam? Yeah, Cameron, you know, the big tech expert here, practically fueled by nacho chips. When did you meet Cameron? Man, it's been so long ago. I think we met in the cafeteria at Site 83. No, we met in school, didn't we? Ah, well, it doesn't matter. Can you tell me why you were incarcerated? Fraud and money laundering. Let me guess, I'm wrong again? Yes, you were guilty of 2 counts of second-degree murder. Yeah, I'm fairly sure I'd remember killing someone, and I appreciate if you didn't suggest I had. Very well. Do you recall what happened inside SCP-739 when the door was closed? The boot thing, right? I, sort of remember something foggy before the door opened up again. Continue. I was alone when I went in, right? I remember hearing voices when I stepped in. I don't think those things belong. What things? I'm not really sure. Well, I suppose you could go see for yourself. I think they'd be happy to see you. End log. Closing statements. Attempts to communicate with Disposable Dude and gather more information and the changes that they underwent are currently ongoing, but due to their unwillingness to cooperate, the information gathered thus far has been proven to be inconclusive. Any personnel cycled through it are to be interviewed immediately unless they pose a direct threat to Foundation personnel, at which time traditional means of termination are authorized to be used at the discretion of the project director. Addendum 2, Incident Log. 739 was closed and opened without any items or subjects being present within. Results. An entity of unknown origin emerged from 739 once the standard 10-second sealing state had concluded. The physical appearance of the entity, causally designated to be SCP-1D, was concealed on all visual recordings of it, appearing as a darkened region on such. Personnel present in the testing chamber at the time displayed extreme discomfort at the appearance of the entity and attempted to avoid observation of it. D showed an immediate awareness of Site 83's layout. The Site 739 was present at during the experiment. Oh, it's the experiment that I thought might not be here. It proceeded to breach containment by use of directed shockwave pulses in excess of 210 decibels to destroy impending barriers and kill any personnel it encountered, primarily armed first response containment teams. The entity displayed a focus on eliminating as many personnel as it was capable of, showing no acknowledgement of other objects or entities unless such impeded or attacked the entity to some capacity. Containment efforts were severely impeded due to the visually cognito-hazardous appearance of it. After 10 minutes, it collapsed. An automated autopsy of the entity revealed that it was not suited to Terran environments and succumbed to an approximate analog of oxygen intoxication. It had suffered non-lethal injuries during its containment breach, apparently being capable of rapid regeneration while active. During the containment breach of D, a second similar entity designated 2 emerged from 739 and immediately proceeded to escape from the perimeter of 83. It is unknown if 2 is more adapted to Terran environments than 1D, as the entity has not been observed since its initial breach. Addendum 3. Analysis of the auditory pulses utilized by D to attack personnel have been discovered to be heavily distorted human speech. Below is a transcript of several phrases by it. You let me in. There's so much to do. We will enforce what your messengers taught us. We are ready to complete our work. Why do you ignore me? Will you look if we all scream together? We will earn your acknowledgement. Yeah, that's creepy. Especially since that means that it just was killing people by screaming this at them, so it probably just walked out the mirror, looked at a wall and went, "You let me in!" And then the wall exploded. So, Yeah, probably should destroy that. Just, you know, chuck rocks at all the mirrors or something. Did they try to break it? I don't think they did. Maybe they believe in bad luck from breaking mirrors, but they should kill that. Now it's time for the Hindenburg Photograph, which is safe. I mean, for what it's worth. The Hindenburg wasn't safe, but the photograph seems to be. SCP-740 can be safely stored in its envelope in a secure security deposit box. Researchers testing it must wear gloves at all times. Doesn't sound safe. 740 is a slightly dirty, color-corrected Polaroid photograph depicting the May 6, 1937 explosion of the airship LZ-129 Hindenburg at Lakehurst Naval Air Station, New Jersey. The Polaroid has been determined to be a photograph taken of the original. 740's anomalous traits manifest when it is when it is viewed in contact with skin. The subject touching or holding it will hear the sounds of explosions and people screaming. Subjects report difficulty in taking their eyes off the photograph while under its influence. Subjects holding the object typically report their inability to freely release their grip as being very distressing. Many subjects have undergone emotional breakdowns as its effects progress. After 1 minute of holding and looking at the photograph, the subject's body temperature will begin to rise, accompanied by a sense of warmness. They're going to spontaneously combust, aren't they? The intensity of the warmth as well as the volume of the auditory hallucinations will continue to increase so long as the subject looks at the photograph. Breaking eye contact will prevent the sensations from intensifying until eye contact is reestablished, and cessation of physical contact will cause the effect to reset to the initial stage should it be handled again. The subject will begin to emit smoke after a period of time between 2 and 4 minutes, and burst into flame shortly afterwards. Time of combustion is directly correlated to the subject's size and weight. This flame will consume upwards of 90% of the subject's body mass and has proven fatal in all cases, as it does. The fire also consumes 740, which will slowly restore itself to its original condition over the next 5 to 18 hours. Interview log. Who are they interviewing? Okay. But before I do the interview log, I just want to say that I just want to make this reference. Look at this photograph! Every time I do, I spontaneously combust from fire over 90% of my body. Anyway, Agent M was interviewed by Dr. E. Forward, standard interview conducted within 48 hours of SCP procurement. Agent M has been employed by the Foundation for blank years, I bumped into the mic, sorry, and retrieved or secured blank SCPs in that time, of which the retrieval 740 was his 6th leading a retrieval team. Please state in your own words what happened during your recovery assignment. I was sent out to recover the the photo from the home of Mr. A, or AF. It came to our attention when Mr. F tried unsuccessfully to sell it at an auction, and I had been keeping tabs on it for about 3 weeks prior. What prevented his selling it? The auctioneer spontaneously combusted. I mean, the official cause of death was smoke inhalation, but that's what happened. I see. Please continue. Anyway, after Mr. F recovered the photo, he started bringing in a bunch of people to look at it, trying to sell it again. By the time I visited, his home, he was all but giving it away. And no one took it. When you hear what happened, you'll understand why. After I got authority to approach for the buy, I took a team out to the retrieval site. It was considered a low-risk retrieval, so they stayed out of sight back down his driveway, while I knocked on his front door. We'd arranged the meeting for 1:45, and it was March blank 19 blank. He had a real nice place, huge New England mansion. He welcomed me in, gave me a seat, offered me some brandy, which I declined. He was real old, real thin and wrinkly, but really animated, talked with his hands a lot. How did the incident occur? Yeah, well, he made small talk for like 10 minutes until I asked about the photograph, and then he acted like he'd forgotten that's why I was there. He goes, gets it, brings it back in an envelope and hands it to me. He hesitated though, and gave me this weird look, like he was trying to read my mind or something. Anyway, I slid it out and there it was. A Polaroid of the Hindenburg disaster. First thing I did was ask him how he managed to capture the explosion with a camera made decades after it happened, and he tells me it's a photo of a photo. And then I started hearing it. Hearing what? Explosions, fire, people, men, women, children screaming in pain and terror. It was like I was just getting sucked into that photo. I couldn't look away. Then he leans forward and that breaks my concentration like I'd forgotten to look up at all. He's giving me that look again. He says, "You hear them too, don't you?" I said, "Yeah." Then he shakes his head like he's disappointed. "You're all the same, blasted." That's exactly what he said. You know what he meant by that? Yeah, he went on how everyone he ever showed the photos who could hear things. I asked if he did too, and he said no, then he reaches to take it back. This is when the incident occurred. He says, No, son, it's deemed you unworthy. Give it here. I told him in no strong words I was leaving with it. Even mentioned the briefcase of money I'd brought, but he wasn't having it. He goes, I've watched men burn to death because they weren't worthy. Give it to me now! He lunges at me, knocks over my chair, feels strong for an old guy. Please, continue. I didn't... There was no prior intel the guy was a skip himself, or he'd have been coming back with me too. I had to follow protocol, called in my team. But with the voices in my head, the photo I couldn't let go of, and there was fire coming out of his eyes and off his ball... I just panicked, okay? I've been doing this for years, but I just freaked the hell out. Drew my weapon, fired, what, 3 times? 4? The record indicates 3 shots. I don't remember. Anyway, I immediately called it in, grabbed the envelope, and left the house. I was also feeling really hot, even though it was pretty cold. March in New England and all. Is this when the house ignited? Yeah. By the time I'm outside, there's smoke coming out the roof. Once my team shows up and pries my fingers off the skip, the whole thing's in flames. I had to stand way back. I couldn't help standing back. I didn't want to be anywhere near it. Doc, I saw the forensic reports. You know what they said? What did they say? They placed the ignition point right where the old coot landed after I shot him. His body put the whole place up in 3 fucking minutes. Jesus. Thank you, Agent. That'll be enough. Closing statement. Agent M was remanded to psychiatric evaluation for 3 months to treat mental trauma and acute pyrophobia not previously noted in his psychological profile. After amnestics failed to cure the condition, he was reassigned to a clerical position. Well, damn. And this was safe. Okay. Cool. Cool. Not for him. Really hot for him, but cool to me. Anyway, that about does it for this episode of Let's Read the SCP Foundation Wiki. I believe it's episode 157, but I could be wrong. In the next one, we're going to be checking out Mysterious Russian Submarine, Retrovirus, a Chocolate Fountain, Assembly Required, and the Headlights. I mean, these all do sound like things you'd check out, but shouldn't. That being said, if you liked it, a like and subscribe will be groovy. If you didn't, you need to do either one of those things, and I will see y'all in the next one. Later.